as a writer, the sound. You know, I lie for a living, but in an effort or in to tell the truth. That's what I do. I'm interested in our behavior and, you know, even why you guys love doing what you do. There's a reason for it. There's a reason why all of us, some people don't even understand or respect or honor their passion. Telling stories was a way to understand or at least inquire about our behavior, because I grew up in a very poor household and everybody in my family was broke, and it was a time when people were dying of heroin and drugs and alcoholics and all that. And I just wanted to know why it was so hard to be happy and to do well and to prosper. I don't want to say that I'm primarily interested in women and African American women in particular, because I'm not. I'm interested in women, all women, kids, men. I'm just interested in human behavior. But what's close to me is women and the quality of our lives, because it has a trickle down or a trickle across effect. You know, all of us aren't parents. Some of us are lovers. Some of us have husbands. Some of us have wives. And, you know, what I'm more interested in is just our joy. This story, I was curious about what happens to women who did it right, all by the book. You know, I mean, I went to undergrad, UC Berkeley, graduate school, Columbia University. I wrote a couple books, and the next thing I know, I'm making bestsellers and all that. I love what I do. Nobody tells me how to do it, how to do it. I do it my way. Okay, I do have an editor who I listen to. Okay? But still, I disagree. If I disagree, I disagree. But I don't feel not the word, not omnipotent, but I don't feel like, I mean, she's an editor for a reason. You know, it's like having a third eye. But I can do this the rest of my life. And I'm just curious. I wanted to know what happens when you do it all right. You went to the right college, you got the right career, you're successful, you got the little stupid house and maybe the Beamer, whatever. And, you know, you get married, you have a couple husbands, bye. And then you have the kids, one goes to NYU, one went somewhere else, they're successful, they live in Silicon Valley. And then you look around and you're like, is this it? Is this it? You haven't flatlined, but it's called, I guess, inertia, where like every day is just the same. And for some people, that's fine. But sometimes when you get to be in your 50s, you start thinking about, wait a minute. And especially young people think that it's all downhill after. I mean, like there's this line of demarcation, I guess, at 45 or 50 that it just, and so, and I just believe that as women and as human beings, period, men and women, but mostly women, that we don't give ourselves enough credit. You know, we buy into this, forgive me if this is illegal, but into the bullshit about getting old, that we all get fat and we're unattractive, we're not sexual beings and all that. I just do not buy it. I don't buy it. And I think too many women fall into it, especially menopause. We all know what effect, and maybe you guys don't, but it, you know, it does have something, it changes you. But you don't have to get all, it doesn't have to be a negative experience. And I don't believe that it is all downhill from here.
I hope you all enjoyed the clip that was just shared with you all, because that's what we're discussing today, right? So as everyone comes into the room, I want to formally welcome everyone who thought it was crucial to be here today to the Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated Tau Epsilon Omega Chapter Book Club. Now you've seen the flyers around and you see the title of our book club, which is called Bookish. And you might have said, what does that actually mean, bookish? So when we think about, and if you've ever been a part of a book club, you know that, we talk about the book club and the characters, but it also kind of shifts us into a dialogue of life applications, or a dialogue, or the what ifs, the could be's, either personally or in your family might be perhaps. So that's why we came up with the idea or the concept of our book club being called the Bookish. So we are definitely excited to have you here. We're definitely excited to get started. But I do want to give some housekeeping rules so that we can flow effortlessly and in order. So as everyone comes in or throughout today, let's make sure that we keep our devices, whether it's phone, laptop, iPad, that we keep it on mute so that we can be considerate to others. Secondly, please limit your chat box uh, activity to just asking questions, in which myself and Mrs. Tia McCullers will moderate that, so make sure that your voice is heard. But then also there will be a point that you will get to have some dialogue with us. And if you would like to do that, we ask that you definitely use the raise hand feature. And we will make sure to acknowledge you, as well as allow you the time to either, make your statement and or ask a question. So without further ado, we will now have our president of Tau Epsilon Omega chapter share her greetings and welcome.
Good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of the members of Tau Epsilon Omega chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, I do welcome you to our afternoon book club discussion. I'm happy to see all of our guests, happy to see all of the members of Tau Epsilon Omega that are present on the call. Hello. To you, and special greetings. Thank you to our community guests for being here. I also am very much appreciative to our coordinators, Tia McCullers and Jada Dixon. Thank you for all of the work that you have put in under the leadership of our Vice President and Program Chairman, Ms. Suzette Lassane. Ms. Lassane, thank you so much for your leadership, not only over this, but all of our program activities. I don't often get a chance to read, but thanks to the power outages of a couple weeks ago, I was able to start this book and actually finish it this morning, and I certainly have some thoughts. So I am anxious to see what everybody else thinks and to hear your reactions to the story. I know I certainly had some times where the characters bothered me quite a bit. So I am excited about this discussion. I'm excited to hear your thoughts. Thank you for being with us this afternoon. And for those of you I see who are regular attendees of our events, thank you so much for your continued support. Tia?
Well, greetings, ladies. I don't see any gentlemen on, so I'll say greetings, lady. And welcome again to Bookish, the TEO Book Club. And just let me tell you, this book has really worn me out. So before we start, I just want to make sure, give a thumbs up if you can hear me okay. I had some echoes later. Okay, you can hear me okay. This book has really worn me out, but not always in a bad way. So this one, I want this to be an engaging conversation, an open conversation. Do not hesitate to raise your hand. Let's really get into this discussion because it is definitely a lively one. And I'm going to start off. I do have my trusty list of questions here that I want you all to engage and discuss about. But I want to start off giving my unsolicited, I guess, opinion about our book club choice of the month. It's Not All Downhill from Here by Terry McMillan. I'm going to also ask, after I give my opinion, if there are 2 to 3 people who would like to share their opinion of the overall view of the book before we really dive in. So I will say this book wasn't quite what I expected. I think when I started this book, I was really excited because in my head, I had Waiting to Exhale. In my head, I had How Stella Got Her Groove Back. You know, those were the characters that I really connected with Terry McMillan from. And I was in college reading about, you know, older women. So I had an idea in my mind that this book was going to take us on a journey. Now, I was somewhat surprised when I found out that the leading character, Loretha, in this book was 68. I was fine with that. I mean, we're all headed there. I'm 47. It's going to be here before you know it. But I was, I don't want to say, well, I can say disappointed. I was a little disappointed that there was not more of a storyline or a plot to carry the book. I did enjoy, I mean, Terry McMillan just has a way of just having these characters have all these witty conversations. So there were some points where, I laughed. It wasn't a hard book to read. It just didn't grab me and carry me through the story like I wanted it to. And I will confess that I have about 25 pages to go. Yeah, I just fizzled out because I was just mad. I could see where the book was going. I'm going to eventually finish these last 25 pages. But overall, I would give the book maybe a B minus. Is there anybody else who'd like to chime in and let me know? I mean, you don't have to agree with me. Let me know what you think about the book. If you want to raise your hand, anybody? Okay, I think Julia has her hand raised. Julia Davis. I think you can come off mute, Julia.
Hi, Tia. So I actually love the book. So when you gave it a B minus, I was like, oh man, I really I enjoyed it. It was a quick read. For me, I think it resonated with me because my mom just turned 70 this year. And so I thought it was really unique to kind of just see the perspective of someone that is on the other side of 50 and looking at their life and what to do. And so the whole time I was reading it, I was just kind of encouraged by everybody kind of taking control of their lives again and kind of just finding peace again, finding love again, working on their friendships. So I was looking at it through a different vantage point, but I really enjoyed it. I thought the writing, as you were saying, the end of the book, I feel like everything kind of came together at once. And so the finish of the book was not what I was expecting, but I really enjoyed it. It had a lot of turns in it. Finding out about their friend Poochie was heartbreaking. I just thought it had a lot of loss in it from her husband, because I started off so excited to see their love story and how they grew over the years. And so it definitely took a turn, but I really appreciated the journey that it took me on. And I can't wait to bring it home for the holidays to let my mom read it, because I think she'll have an interesting perspective too, seeing as though she can relate on the age range to the characters. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'm with you. My mom is 69, and when I look at her, maybe it's because I don't see her in any of these characters in their actions. And then I was kind of overwhelmed because I felt like they kept dealing with loss after loss after loss. And I'm like, okay, you're saying it's not all downhill from here, but it's on a slippery slope. And then they just talked about their diabetes all the time. And, there were glimpses of hope, but I don't feel like I found that hope until about page 280, something around that. So, like I said, it's still a good read because she's, adept at just having those characters really draw you in. But it was just missing a little something for me. I guess you have to not go into books with expectations. Just let that book be that book, and don't try to compare it to any of her works before. So thank you, Julia. I appreciate your input. Anybody else? Okay, Audra, I see your hand up. Unmute.
So I'm with you. I was disappointed, like you, when I was in my 20s, and even groove back, right? All of those books we read from Terry McMillan when we were younger, right? You're caught up, right? Those were, the books that were the backdrop of us maturing. And then she wrote the follow-up to Waiting to Exhale. I forgot about the name of that book. But in that book, I walked away disappointed because I felt like those characters never matured. So picking up on this book, I wasn't really sure what to expect. And this is why I'm disappointed, because I feel as from Waiting to Exhale, they just had different names, but basically, right, the immaturity was still there, and I was a little disappointed about that. The story felt real disjointed to me. It didn't really feel like it flowed smoothly. And I barely made it to the end. I finished the book probably about an hour and a half ago. And I was just, kind of disappointed in that everything was tied up so nicely in a bow. And I probably shouldn't have told you that, knowing you had 25 pages to go, but right, I needed some suspense. I needed, I don't know, something a little more fulfilling. I didn't feel fulfilled by this book like I usually do.
I would agree. Okay, we want to hear what Yolanda Davis. I have two people, Yolanda Davis and Shayla Fears. Two people before we go to a short video that I want to show you. Yolanda, if you still want to input, there you are. If you still want to have the input, you can unmute and go ahead and tell us what you thought.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. I loved all capital letters the book, and I think the reason why, and I listened to it via in Audible, which I guess made a difference. I don't know. I listened to it Audible, and I found myself saying, "Wow, finally a book with sisters who aren't represented enough today. That oldest sister, and we don't talk about things." And it was so authentic. It was wonderfully authentic to hear what happens later in life in the sisterhood. I mean, I'm grateful that I still have friends who I've been friends with for 20, 30 years. And we have those kickback conversations now, and their children are like, "Oh, I don't want to hear what y'all say." But we reminisce and we actually laugh about it. And our mantra is, we're going to keep on kicking, we're going to keep on laughing. And that's what I picked up from these women, that the sisterhood amongst them, the authenticity, that life isn't always perfect, and there's things that we don't talk about that happens in real life, but that they, and I don't want to tell you what happened, but basically they keep on living and they keep on loving. And I want to say something. They maintain, I'll put it this way, they maintain their femininity and their womanhood. I'll put it that way. And I applauded them. So yeah, that's pretty much, I would give it an A. I loved it. So yeah, that's it.
Well, thank you. Look, we're two against two, not really against. Just everybody has their own opinions. And listen, if you want to talk about the end of the book, we can go ahead and talk about the end of the book. I'm going to finish it, and whoever wants to read it is going to eventually finish it anyway. So just go ahead and talk. We don't have to kind of hold things back. We had also, who was it? Shayla Fears. Before we watch this video, Jada, I want Shayla Fears to be able to input. And I will say this, Yolanda, I agree. We don't get enough of these characters in this group that are represented. So I did appreciate that. Okay, go ahead, Shayla.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Can you hear me? I'm on my headset, so I'm not sure.
Yes.
Hear me? Okay, cool. I did enjoy the book. I'm used to Terry's other books, like he said, that kind of like draw you in. And so I had a different expectation, but I did it as an Audible as well. So I think that maybe it almost was like a storytelling to me. And I'm 36, okay? And I thought that turning 30, I was like, whoa! Like, like it was like a moment for me, or I almost like, Well, I did cry. I ain't gonna lie, I cried. But then just watching them journey and reinvent themselves and just learning that, you know, things still continue. You can still have fun. You can still feel sexy. You can still like sex. You can still like other things. And I'm like, you know, all those things still matter. And I think that the older I get, my husband gets, he's about to turn 40. And so I was just thinking about how our friends and friends that we've known forever, that we're growing older with, how things may become in the future. But I also thought a lot about my parents because I'm very close to my mother, Denise Thread, and I taught her about just about everything, a lot of things in the book. And you know, I just thought about how she may feel, you know, seeing friends around her that have gone on, or sometimes what they do for fun, or thinking about, you know, my dad who's older than her, you know, she's still kind of like the tenderoni for him. So at the end of the day, you know, I kind of like, well, man, if my dad, you know, passed, well, you know, that void, it would be a huge void because my dad makes my mom feel like she is the peacock of the bunch. Just like, you know, you don't got to tell her nothing. She don't need nobody. So she can not have her teeth brushed and he just will talk to her in the face, you know, like that type of love, you know? So at the end of the day, it really made me think about my parents a lot, and how when you've been with someone so long, and how, you know, just being in that house and all those things. So it had a lot of good points, but I thought it had a lot of sad moments because it did say not downhill, but it did show a lot of things that do go downhill. And I will also say, being in a pandemic where we're isolated right now a lot, it made me think about how much relationships mean right now, and sisterhoods and friendships, and being able to have authentic people that you can talk to all these things going on in your life right now about, because we've been presented with things that we've never had to think about before. And it's really shown me who really is, you know, down. And it's, I would say, my real good friends I could talk about anything with no judgment zone. And it's good to have those friends that's just judgment free. And I'm a very authentic person. I'm an open book. And I felt like she's authentic and an open book in this, the way she wrote this book made it seem like she was an open book and someone that was relatable. So I enjoyed it. I say probably like a B plus, because I'm comparing it to her other books, but I didn't get to the last chapter. So were y'all saying it got tied up in a nice neat bow? I haven't got there yet. I'm still kind of all over the place following the storyline, but that's all. But I enjoyed it.
Well, thank you, Shayla. Jada, I know I said to show the video now, but I want to ask Cynthia because I know Cynthia wanted to add something. Cynthia, what did you think? Unmute yourself, Miss Cynthia. Uh-oh. I don't think you're unmuted yet, Miss Cynthia. There you
Okay,
go.
I am about to lose it over here. That book got an A plus. I'm 68 years young, and let me tell you, I have sisters, and they're my sisters by love. 50 years plus relationships right now. And I tell you, I could have categorized. My thing about this story is I want to see who would play what part. That's all I want to see. Because that thing, I can see me sitting in there buying it. You guys have not gotten there. Shayla, and I'm not sure about Yolanda, and I know Tia, baby. Audra's getting there. Y'all keep living. You keep living. Diabetic free. And I can tell my friends that. Y'all need to hear me for a minute, because we go through every chapter in that book. I was amening. If you look at my book, I got notes. It was a class for me. And I'm so grateful to Terry McMillan. You see, I'm excited because I was so grateful that she showed it's a lot of us. We're baby boomers. We still work. Yeah, the stuff still works down there. You still have desires. Y'all keep living. But let me tell you, don't lose sight of them sister friends. You need them. The very one, write yourself a list. Give 4 names and find them. Because I promise you, what brought you together back then, even if it was last week or 20 years, y'all had a connection. And that's how God wires us. I so love this book. I hated for it to end. That's my husband. I was going, oh, I'm at the end. What about, I can't wait till Saturday. I've been on since 12 o'clock thinking I was missing it. Look, from page 1 to the end, we are in there. And I like the way the first person that spoke that said, and maybe it was Terry McMillan, about, I have sister friends of all hues, all nationalities, that I can dial right now from California to Georgia that will come to my aid. And that's what it's about. It's not the complexion. Yeah, we're important, and I'm down with being Black. But the most important thing is the love that we have, the sisterhood and women. They talked about issues. We didn't even get into the real deep stuff with what your body goes through. They just surfaced, y'all. Y'all really don't know. And if you've been single longer than a month and you've been involved with a man, she said it's only women here. Let's tell the truth. I don't care if you want women now, or men, or whatever it is. We remember what happened with Sadie. She hid that, but they also knew that it was there. They knew their friend well enough to go. I love it. A+. I'll talk later. Thank you for hearing me.
Look, first of all, I knew you were going to love it, Miss Cynthia. I already knew. And isn't it amazing how somebody else's excitement can make you start thinking, well, you know what? That is true about the book. So thank you, Miss Cynthia. That is great insight. I appreciate it. So, Jada, can you start that video? Let's hear a little bit about what Terry McMillan has to say.
Here comes Teddy.
Jada, I'm not hearing the audio. I'm not sure if anyone else is, but I'm not hearing the audio.
Is it about
one
the
moment,
now? I know a
please.
lot of writers have found as a.
We can hear it now.
Now we can hear it now.
And I think
Okay.
that's
Jada, you have to unmute.
story. Like, at what point are we going to write it forward? And I feel like you are providing an example of writing the right now. What does that mean to you?
I don't know. I don't really think of it that way. I write about what's bothering me right at the moment. And sometimes it is timely, you know what I mean? I guess. I just turned 68, but also, I've lost a lot of friends and family members who are younger than I am. And, my thing was, how do you start over? How do you start over when you didn't know you had to? And especially later in life. And also, how do you realize that life isn't over at 50 or 60 or 70? It's not over. And my thing is even now, I want to live up to the last minute, and break the rules and all of that. And I think to some extent, I didn't create, what's her name? Loretha. She's not me. I wish I could be her, more like her, you know what I mean? But a lot of times tragic things happen to us, and I'm not one for tragedies up front. I don't like to play games with my characters or my readers, but I'm not thinking about my readers when I'm writing. I know you don't. So did that answer your question?
But I think
So that was a little bit from Terry's perspective. I do want to ask a question, and I'll jump in and answer it first. What was your favorite part of the book, or which scene has stuck with you the most? Now, I had a couple of parts that I liked, but I think the thing that I liked about the book was that these women were not broke. I can appreciate the fact that it's not a story of Black women who don't have money and everybody's struggling. They had their own issues, their own problems and everything, but it seems like, okay, they were financially stable, especially Loretha. Her husband had left her with great businesses. He had done what he needed to do in his finances. So even though I didn't agree with how she was always spending her money and how she always felt like she had to bail people out, especially what was the Carol? No, Peggy. Was it Aunt Peggy? You know, who was just ungrateful. When she did things for people who I felt were ungrateful, I didn't appreciate that. But she had the money to spend, and it didn't seem like she was a person who was always spending it on materialistic things. So I appreciated the fact that these women had some cash. So for anyone else, what was your favorite part of the book or the scene that stuck out the most? I'll look for a hand raised. I don't see a hand raised. Hold on, let me see. Oh, Shayla, I think. Okay, Shayla.
I agree totally that they had money. I like seeing us in power in business. And they were able to do things like trips and travel and all those things. So I like the presentation of Black wealth in this book, because the reality is we do have money, we do have coins. And I think this is important that we learn to keep the coins in our, kind of in our community as well, to circulate the Black dollar. But I really appreciated that. And I noticed that in her book that nobody was like really extremely broke, and that she owned things and was able to give when people needed it. So personally, I'm a giver. So if I have, I like to give. And I always pray that God keeps me in a position to be able to bless others. And I really think it made me think about that as well.
I agree. Thank you. Suzette, I see your hand up.
Yes. I'm loving this discussion, ladies. So for me, what was interesting was very much like Cynthia, I actually loved the theme around girlfriends. And y'all know that we look to books to be better than we are, but that's not always the case, right? So you know that with your tight crew, your village, your squad, whatever it is, that y'all carry on just the same. And so why we come in here expecting Terry to show us something different, I don't know, y'all, but my favorite part was it's in love. And so the hilarious part, like when they had kind of that celebratory thing at the end, that rolled into kind of the opening, and that dialogue and the exchange there was some of my favorite parts of the book. And it wasn't what I expected, but I think this message around girlfriends, and that no matter what, you might at different points in your relationship repel each other. Y'all might get on each other's nerves. Y'all might call each other the word. You know how she was like, let's just retire saying that word. But you evolve, and it's like an ebb and flow. You can't hold them all on the same circle of your life. Some of them flow out and they come back in, and that's just kind of the beauty of the relationships. And I think Black women in our relationships, and that was my favorite part of the message was, okay, we might be dysfunction and we might go off when we find a little boo and we don't see you for a little while, but at the end of the day, we're going to come back together, and we still have this beautiful bond in between. So that's what I took from it. And that was what I enjoyed, kind of the dialogue related to those topics.
Yeah, I have to agree with you, Suzette. Now that I think about it, me and my girlfriends do act up. So I guess at 68, we will still be acting up and talking shady to each other. But yet and still, Loretha, she was real shady. I mean, like they just said somebody.
I didn't say she wasn't. She was.
But I think whatever she said behind their back is the same thing she was saying in their face. So, there was that. So, okay, let me go to, I apologize if I say the name incorrectly, Willette, Neil, and then we'll go to Yolanda. Willette, Neil, and Yolanda.
One of my favorite parts of the book was the relationship that Loretha had with her mother. And I love the way the mother was like the mediator between the sisters. And she played both sides, but she sort of kept them together. Which is as a mom, we tend to do between the children. And I love that. I loved how the mom gained that independence at the same time by being in the home. And then writing the cards. I'm finding these things as like a memory bank for you to have later, which is actually something that I actually do with my daughter. Every time I leave her house, I leave her a note somewhere and hoping one day, she's only 23 now, but one day she'll put them all together and I have this memory thing. But whenever I spend a weekend or a couple of days with her, I leave a note, and I really like that. So that hit home for me.
I love that idea. I agree. I like how Odessa started sending her you know, and she would always just let her mail pile up. So then it's almost like she had these treasures to open. I'm going to start doing that too. My daughter's only 12, but I know if I write her a note, she's going to keep it. So that's a good idea. Okay, who is next? Yolanda? Yolanda and then Denise.
Hi. Yeah, I agree with both Willette and Suzette. What I love the absolute most is the authenticity these women had. It really epitomized sisterhood. I mean, a very deep sisterhood in which I think I forget the names, but one of them, the rest of them thought and said, you know what, she has a son with the man, so she must be gay, but she don't know it yet. And then the other one who found love after I think her son died, she found love, and she talked about, yeah, and I'm still getting my sex. And the thing about it though is they never judged each other. They got on each other about their health. I mean, that part was amazing. It was like, you better watch your health, you know. But the non-judgment part was beautiful, the most beautiful thing I've ever read. And it really showed that, and it goes against what society says about sisters. We're not all catty, we're not backstabbed. And that's what I loved about it. And they were seasoned women and they grew into their seasonedness with grace. Even Odessa, I think she even epitomized that even at 80 something, she still had her groove on. And so in many ways, Terry, I think this is how Stella got her groove back 30 years later, that these sisters still got their groove on, they were still getting their groove back. But and even when the one sister took her life, that was powerful, but yet even how she planned to even keep her sisters together in her transition. I'm at work right now. I'm a chaplain, and through COVID, yes, I'm at work, but this is how I do my self-care. I'm doing unconventional self-care because this has been an unconventional season. I can't even put words to it. But I really appreciate it's more than camaraderie in the book. It was amazing sisterhood / kinship amongst Black, educated, well-to-do women. And last thing also, they also supported themselves as mothers. Those who were mothers, they even supported their struggles with their children. So I needed that at that point. I guess I'm seeking support and I needed that. So yeah.
Thank you for your input, Denise. And after Denise, we'll go to Erica Whalen. I'm sorry if I'm missing some hands. I see you, Julia. I might have to get you on the next question. I'm not sure. Denise and then Erica Whalen.
Hi, everyone. I am really enjoying your perspective of the book. It touched a lot of places for me. One of the things that I appreciate is that she did not lay back on the dysfunction. My mom had a crew of friends that were just like that. They would tell each other off, especially on the weekend, y'all. They would tell each other off. And then they would look, if the other didn't come back or call during the week, they'd look and, lay back for a little bit. By the weekend, they were back together at the table. So I could so relate to that. The other thing is the estrangement, of the daughter and how it tapped into depression. And sometimes there are dysfunctions that go on, and we don't know why. There's rejection that goes on. We don't know why. And for this mother to finally find out that her daughter, it wasn't just because she wanted to, but that her daughter had a real sickness, that was eye-opening for me. Because as a counselor, I know people who have estrangement with their children, and sometimes their children do have depression, and it takes many forms. So that was an eye-opener for me. And then just the facets of love, because I saw layers of love in there, different kinds of love. I saw the love for the mother and the daughter, the love for the mother, the sister to sister. It was different, but still it was a different kind of love. And the love from the mother to Loretha's mother to her mother, you know, just different kinds of love expressed in there. And definitely, as my daughter said, I can definitely relate to someone loving you to the max, like her husband, Loretha's husband, loved her. I really, really enjoyed seeing how and I felt like I was there, the relationship that she had with her husband. So there was so much that I could relate to. It was hard for me, I won't lie, to get through those, some of the words, you know, those choice words. That was difficult for me. And while you say it wasn't a storyline, it was like different scenes to me. That's the way I took it. It's not necessarily a thread, a common thread or something, but different scenes that she showed that I could relate to. So I enjoyed it, and I would give it a B plus because of you know, those choice words that I had to read through.
Right, and I agree. It was an issue, or they did address parenting, and I think they had grown together so much that they had gone from parenting their young children, and now they were having to learn how to parent their adult children, which is totally different beast. Thank you, Denise. Erica?
Yes, hi, ladies. As I was reading this book, I so appreciate the book. I got the book from my mother also, so we can read the book together. But as I was reading the book, I saw my mother's life. I saw my aunt's life. And myself being 47 years old, I am going through that transition where I see a life change. I have a young daughter. So when I was reading the book, I thought about her and making sure I keep that relationship. So maybe this is more of a comment of the overall book. Just learning to keep your sisters. And Miss Cynthia, thank you so much for your comment, because it reminded me so much of my grandmother. She said, keep living. And then my mother always taught me to make sure you keep your friends. You always have to understand that your friends are going to all be different. You have to accept your friends. And so that's what they did in the book. They kept their friendships going throughout the years because they accepted each other for who they were. And I so appreciate that, because that's what I'm going through in my life. I have a really good friend that I met in the 10th grade, and she was diagnosed with cancer 2 years ago. Now it's spreading. So just seeing how the women in this book went through those changes, and, you know, the loss and the ups and the downs, you know, that's one thing we as women, listen, we're going to have to go through those things, and we just have to understand that life does still go on. But yeah, set our lives up where keep our sisterhoods going. And because we're going to need them. We're going to need them. And I see that now. So yeah, I really appreciate the discussion. So
Thank you. I appreciate it, Erica. Julia, I'm going to circle back to you, okay? I want to ask another question. There seems to be a tendency of the characters in the book to hide things, such as the case in real life. Like, you know, Carl hid his heart problems. Poochie hid the fact that she had cancer. Loretha's mom, Carolyn, Kwame's mom, and even, I think there was just two, all of them hid the fact that they had diabetes. Like, they didn't tell their family till like 30 and 35 years later. Why do you think they feel like they couldn't share, or why do we feel like we have to hide those things from our family? Any input? Okay, Julia, go ahead and unmute yourself, babe.
So, yeah, I think this was a big theme in the book, especially when it came to mental health. And I can't remember whose mom it was, but somebody didn't disclose that they had been depressed and dealing with depression for years too. And I think sometimes health issues are just such a stigma in the Black community that we don't want to talk about what we're going through, even though it may help the next generation under us. And I also think that there's, I guess, kind of a stigma that comes with seeking help, because in the book, when, you know, Peggy was saying like, the daughter needed a psychiatrist and a therapist, and the mom was like, well, Black people don't do that. And so I think there's a theme within our own communities that, you know, that's just not something that we do. And so maybe that kind of plays into why we don't seek help. And then also while we're not vocal about what it is that we're going through, to be able to help our family be aware of what's going on with us, or to be able to help the next generation under us. So I definitely think it was an important theme, and it kind of just shed light on the importance of like having those honest conversations with your family, and not being afraid to be vulnerable with them and tell them about what you're personally going through. So
That's true. Thank you. Shayla. Oh, wait, hold on, Shayla. I'm going to come back to you. Donna Stevenson. Stefferson.
It doesn't matter. They go by either one.
Okay, go ahead, Donna, and then we'll come back to Shayla.
Okay, fine. I enjoyed the book because the women were of my age. I was only like I'm only a few years younger than them. So I totally understand having these friends, because the older I get, we're coming back together, more intimately, because we realize that, our friendship is so long, it's even more important now than ever. As far as not telling things, I agree with Julia 100%. We have people in our family that suffer from mental illness, but until one person started telling it, everyone else was ashamed. Like you said, Julia, there was a stigma they felt. So nobody wanted to tell it until one person said it. It opened up the gates, and then you find out that all of these things exist. And then when I look at people like my dad, who I knew that he used to go in for colonoscopies very frequently, but it wasn't until a few years ago, and he was in the hospital for some blood clots, and the doctor came in, started reading his chart, and then he says, "You've had colon cancer, you had rectal cancer." He said no. Well, the second time a doctor came in and said that, it occurred to me that my father was in real deep denial. And to this day, he still will not say he had cancer. And at 93, I don't like to argue with him, but it's like, come on, Dad. But he says, no, I never did, because I never had chemo. So in his mind, it's a pride thing. I'm healthy, because he is healthy. Otherwise, for him, it's a sign of weakness to be sick. So he refuses. And I'm thinking, all these years, I should have been getting colonoscopies way sooner, because that harms the other people. But then you kind of understand where he's coming from. But yeah, secrets are no good. No good.
Wow. This is opening my eyes to a lot. Who else did I go to? Shayla, I think it was Shayla.
Hey, yes. Okay, so I agree with Julia as well. When it comes to the stigma of mental illness, I think people, especially in the Black community, not so much in the white community, they're quick to go get some meds and say, I need something. But in our community, sometimes they think you can pray your mental health away or something. I don't know. But basically, I actually am in the category of someone that suffers with anxiety depression disorder. And it wasn't until I had my second child that it really became noticeable enough for even my mom to say, well, you know what, it's been a little, you're crying a little too much or so forth, just because I guess more or less she's dealt with patients with depression and could recognize it sooner. But I did not say anything to my friends for a long time that I was going through this. And it wasn't so much that I kept it a secret, but I didn't want to be judged because I was taking medicine, some good, happy medicine at that, if you know what I'm talking about, some good, happy pills. And so I was okay with my happy pills. And I was like, well, how come we don't all take happy pills? But at the end of the day, basically, once I opened up to what I call my circle, because everyone in my friends, I guess you could say, is not my tight circle, but when I opened up to my circle, I realized that I'm I'm not the only one on these happy pills. We're starting to discuss the milligrams we're on and everything like that. So they just didn't know how to say it either. But now we help each other and recognize, like for example, one of my friends lost a parent in college a day before her birthday, which was right around Christmas. So I know around that time of year why she shuts down or why, it kind of helps me understand life better. And I think that if you have real girlfriends, they do not judge you. They want to help you, support you. They recognize when things aren't right with you and they'll say, hey, are you okay? Have you been, is something triggered something for you? And we help each other. I mean, I think that mental health, especially during this pandemic, is going to be a huge, more than I think one of the lasting things about this pandemic is going to be a lot of PTSD from the emotional impact that this is having on isolation, on the fact of sudden death, unexplainable things. And for me, one of my triggers is just major change. I'm an A-type person. So when things don't go as I have pretty much planned or some type of expectation, then my mind races, right? So I think that it opened up to me the eyes of, yes, we all have these different issues, but if you have the right group of friends, they're going to support you with those issues. They're not going to judge you with those issues, And I thank God that I have those type of friends in my life, but I do think that it's an awareness in our community, period. And especially on women, even more so than men sometimes, that deal with depression, especially getting older, because you start to think about how much your body has changed, how many things start to change with you. And not that they not changing too, because they lose their hair and everything else and all that kind of good stuff. But what happens when we start losing our hair? What happens when we start not being able to control our weight, what it used to be? It used to, so it starts to, manufacture itself sometimes in a depression that we don't recognize. It's not the traditional depression of when you see somebody in a dark room on a commercial. It's not that. And there's different levels of it. And I just think that it really brought awareness when I saw that in the book. So just because I could relate to it. So I agree that it's definitely reasons people, hide things. And I think a lot of times, even with parents, like the last person was saying, they do it because they want to protect people from the I don't want to say burden, but pretty much sharing in their burden, especially when it comes to parents and their children. They don't want to tell them anything until because they know you want to worry or they don't want to upset you. So I think a lot of times we wait to the last minute to say certain things, but sometimes it's necessary it's said before because it could be something preventative. Like if my parents which are in the diabetic category, I need to be aware because that affects my susceptibility to diabetes as well. So
Yeah, I can agree with everything you said, definitely. Loretha Freeman, did you want to add something?
Yes, I did. Just listening to Shayla there. Oops, I don't, hold on, let me try to get my video on. I had my video off because I wasn't feeling too good. To be honest, I had COVID this week and just kind of recovering, but I didn't want to miss this discussion today. I just wanted to add that, it's hard to make those lifestyle choices, changes. And, when we know that we should be eating healthier and we're dealing with diabetes and all these other health issues, it's hard to make those changes in your life, those daily changes in order to make sure that we are healthy. And I think that's why we kind of keep it secret, because we don't want why are you eating that? And you shouldn't be eating that. And it just makes you feel bad. I myself had to transition to a plant-based diet a few years back, and it was hard to give up those great foods and the mac and cheese and all these things that we always love to eat. And I would find myself eating it, and my husband would be like, why would you eat that when you know it's going to make your stomach hurt? in an hour or two, and it's just, and so after a while I would just be like, oh, you know, it doesn't bother me just because I want to eat it, and so I would keep, try to keep it like it's not going to be an issue when I knew that it would. And so it's just hard to make those changes when you've been doing things your whole life that way. And so I think you just start, you don't want to talk about it, and so you just kind of keep it secret. But I don't think that's the answer. And I think that's, kind of what we see here. When you've got people who know what's going on with you, they're there to support you. If you look at it that way and say, you know what, they care about me, I should care about myself, and I need to make these decisions for me. And you slowly get there. It's not an overnight thing, but I think when you surround yourself with people and you make them aware of what you're dealing with, it helps. And it's just a matter of accepting it and making those lifestyle changes, and then you get there. So that's all I want to chime in and say.
Thank you, Loretha, and thank you for joining us. We just pray for your full recovery from COVID.
Thank you.
You just keep pressing through. You said, you look good. Despite what you've been through, you look good. So thank you for joining us. I appreciate it. Okay, let's move to another question. If you could ask the author anything, Terry, why did you do this? Why did you write it this way? Or what were you thinking? What would it be? If you could ask Terry McMillan anything about this book, what would it be? I might have to think about that one for a minute. No takers yet? Let me double check, make sure I'm not missing anybody. No takers. Okay, well, oh, Donna. Okay, I was gonna say we'll circle back around to that. Go ahead, Donna.
I was like, why did Loretha's poor husband have to die right there on the steps outside the beautiful hotel room? I was like, why? That just kind of killed it from me. And, it was like, oh, what a way to go, So for me, I was like,
why so soon? I know that kicked off the book. Anybody else? I had one at the front of my mind and it just slipped away. I hate when that happens. That's okay. We'll come back around. Another question. Okay, in the end, on the cruise, for those of us who, wait, Yolanda. Oh, Yolanda, you were going to answer that. Go ahead, Yolanda. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. The one, and maybe someone can help me out with this here. I didn't understand the situation with her sister. Now, was she just talking, or did they come from two different daddies, or they were twins? Can somebody help me out with that one? I mean,
okay.
That was an interesting one. I'm like, what? So, yeah.
Okay, so they were twins. Now, when I did the calculation, I was like, well, her mom was only like 80 something. She's 68. Like her mom had them when she was like 18. So she was pregnant with twins, but she slept with two men. And this is possible. She slept with two men so close together. So each one of them had a different dad.
Right.
So they were twins. She was pregnant at the same time with them. One was born on December 31st, and then the other one was born on January 1st. So that's the explanation for that. I mean, far-fetched, but it does happen. Okay, now speaking of the twins, in the end on the cruise, Loretha and Odessa had a moment of reconciliation. And one thing that really popped out is when Odessa didn't believe she had been successful. Like she had been so busy thinking about comparing herself to Loretha that she didn't see her own success. And that's why she said, Loretha said, you are successful. You're just too busy comparing yourself with mine. And I think that's true. So why, as women, do we do this? Why do we feel like we're not successful when we base our lives on what other people are doing? And I mean, how can we be better about this? Anybody want to chime in? Cynthia, Miss Cynthia?
Yes, I'll chime in and kind of do a bring together question with the summary. I think when it goes back to the dads, they knew from the beginning that they had different fathers, number one. So it wasn't hitting like trying to prove that they had the same dad. The mom, going back to Loretha and Odessa's mom, she did try to pull them together because she said she made some decisions back in the day. She wished she had done things different. She also hid the fact that she had diabetes all along and just said, I just didn't want to tell you because number one, we as moms, I didn't want to worry you. But yet and still, as several of us have said, me, myself, I didn't know till my father passed, actually in the hospital, that the first thing the doctor said, and you had diabetes. My dad never, ever took anything for diabetes, as a lot of Black men do. They don't own up to what's going on in their bodies. So all these years, I never knew. For those many years, when I found out I had it, I was 59 years old. But my dad had it all along. He refused to take anything. So that's another thing with health issues. We talk about the mental health. Also, we talk about how we don't talk about it in the community. We don't talk about it in the family. She talked about the happy pills. We make excuses and we bite it on. But I go back to the fact of the matter, the family, the makeup of the family. Each one of us here now will know someone that's going through medically. Check them, check your circle, check the ones that are not in your circle, because diabetes is killing people every day. They're still cutting off limbs. 2021, there's still people won't face the fact that just change a diet. And yes, I think it was Miss Julia or someone talked about, and Miss Loretha that has the COVID, about how hard it is to make life changes, but that's life. And I think this COVID is allowing us, getting back to those twins, they were in competition from day one. And it was done to me by the mom, not saying, okay, I love you, but she told each one of them, I do love you. But they didn't see the example to me in her where she showed how much she loved them. That's your sister, handle it. We as moms say that, okay, you're the oldest, you take care of this. I know I did it with my kids. And if not, check on your children. As adults now, I tell them all the time, you don't have to include me in your little group, that group meet, whatever they do. They chat among themselves. But that's what, as a mom, I wanted for them. If I go right now, I know my children will connect. But that's a life lesson I learned, and not for an example from my parents who had large families, but for what I wanted for my children. So I think the Loretha and Odessa, we could put our faces in some of those. No, you weren't twins, but you may have had challenges in your home with your siblings. Even with some of my girlfriends, I think one of us talked about, no, it's not a competition. We need to support each other, whether good, bad, or indifferent, and then not judge them.
Amen to that, Miss Cynthia. Even Loretha had mentioned one of the times when she couldn't get in touch with Jaleesa, one of the messages she left to Jaleesa was, you're not in competition with your brother, because sometimes as parents, we don't at first see that we're doing these things. It could be you have one child who's really great in school and one who's not. And so you're always putting the attention on the child who's good in school, and the one who's not so academically inclined feels left out. So that, we kind of feed into some sibling rivalry or sibling tension without realizing that. So you just make sure that each child knows their worth and each child knows what they're grading, and you just, focus on that. And, everybody can get some of the spotlight, and, encourage your children to, this is what I've been trying to do, especially, like you said, COVID has changed our perspective on things. I always try to encourage my children to pump the other child up. You know what I'm saying? It's like, okay, well, this is their time to shine. Tell them, that's good. You did a great job. Don't make it be like, well, they did that, but what about me? Look what I did. It's okay to compliment other kids or to compliment your siblings. Anybody else want to add to that? Make sure I'm not missing anyone. Y'all are getting quiet. We're about to wrap up. Did anybody have a question? Did anybody want to answer the question about if you could ask Terry McMillan one thing, what would it be? Well, I know what I would ask her. And I can say, I'm not going back to knocking this book, but I kind of, in a way, felt like all of her characters' voices were the same. I don't know if that makes any sense. It's like, I felt like was that intentional? Did you do it that way? Meaning, if you took out the person's name and you just read what they were saying, I felt like all of the characters kind of had the same way of thinking about some things. Anybody else think that, or is it just me? Julia, what did you think?
I kind of thought the same thing, especially her best friend, what was it, Ko and Lo? I feel like they were pretty similar with their like mindsets of things. And even I think Lucky was pretty similar to them as well. The only one that was just truly different was, I guess, Sadie. And I
Yeah.
gotten more of Poochie's story. I feel like we didn't really get to know a lot about her background and what she was going through. So I definitely agree with you on that. And I know earlier we talked about it wrapping up in a little bow. And I guess that would be my only question for Terry too is, I know it's not supposed to all be downhill from here, and the characters suffered quite a bit, in each of their stories, but it seemed like by the last page, everyone's kids, that were still alive had come around, and, they weren't going through a divorce anymore. They found love, the youngest generation was back on their feet. And so it was just a really happy ending. And I like that, but I also, would have liked to see a little bit more, I guess, coping through when it doesn't all come together in a nice little bow, because sometimes life doesn't happen like that where everything just works itself out. So that would be my only question for Terry, like, why she decided to give everybody a happy ending, or as happy as it could be with what they were going through.
And sometimes I think as an author, they feel like they have to wrap it up in a bow because they don't want to do a sequel. If there's outstanding and lingering questions, then they feel like they have to go back to those characters. And if they feel like I am done with these characters, they just wrap it up because they don't want anybody asking, well, what happened to this and what happened to that? Willette?
I would ask about the death. It seemed like there was a lot of death involved in the story. And why did there need to be so much? Because you couldn't actually delve into it a lot because there was so much. You started from the beginning, and it seemed to be integrals of someone dealing with death a lot. And because of that, I didn't think we could go into it as much as needed, or as much as I would have liked to see in the book.
Right, I agree. She just kept hitting us back to back to back, and it happened especially at a time for me when we had a loss in our family last week. So then, when you're already dealing with that, and then you read about losses back to back to back, it could just be overwhelming. One thing that Leisha Sandler said is she would ask how her pen evolved through her literary journey. That's a good question, and how she's grown, because she's had these characters that have grown with her. It's like all of her characters have aged with her. And Madge Willis says she's glad to be here. She listened to it on Audible, and Terry read it. She's a great writer, but not a great reader. All of the characters sounded exactly the same from her voice. I agree, because I listened to just they'll let you listen to like a little bit of Audible, and like she doesn't have that variation in her voice like some of the professional Audible readers do. Sometimes it was hard to follow which character was speaking. Better to have an actor read the book and change the tone, voice, and attitudes in their voices. That may have helped. I agree. And then Julia added she didn't get to see a lot of the grieving process, especially for Lo. Janan, you agreed with Madge. You did not like her voice. Terry has a very it's how she has one of those voices, either you like it or you don't. She almost seems like she's fussing all the time. Like no matter what she's saying, I'm like, Terry, girl, you mad all the time. Why are you so mad? But I think that's just the tone of her voice. So we're almost ready to wrap it up. The last question I have, would you like to see a sequel to this book? Even though she wrapped it up, do you want to see the sequel to this book? Anybody? Does that mean no? Oh, Suzette? Denise said no. Suzette and Tracy said no.
I don't think, like, there's some books that are so titillating that you're just like, oh my God, what just happened? Like, I need more. I don't think so. Like, I think this book reflects a point in her life. and all that was happening, and it felt ordinary in some ways, and just there was nothing, to your point, there was not a big storyline that left us hanging. And so I don't necessarily have to see a sequel, because I felt like it was a point in time. We acknowledged that. We acknowledged kind of that experience that she was going through with the relationships. And I'm okay with that.
Mhm. Agreed. Ray says she agrees with you, Suzette. But Julia would like to see it as a movie. I don't know. Whenever I think of a Terry McMillan movie, I always have Loretta Devine in my mind. Like, she has to be in every movie that Terry does. Let me see. Agree. Everybody agrees. Yes, Julia as a movie. So as we wrap up our bookish, I hope you all enjoyed the conversation. Like I said, it's not just about books. So the next time you see a bookish graphic go up and an invitation, make sure you invite your friends to participate. And you never know, someday soon we'll be able to be back together again. If there anyone on the call who would like to tell us what's on their to be read list, what's on your nightstand, what are you reading? I'm about to start reading President Obama's book, Promised Land. It's like 701 pages. I'm going to read every single page. Is there anything else that you all are about to start reading you'd like to share, or drop in the chat? We can kind of get a reading list. Julia said she's starting to read The Vanishing Half. Oh, wait, let me go back to Sharita. Sharita, you wanted to say something. Go ahead, Sharita.
Actually, hi, everybody. Glad to be here. So yeah, that's exactly what I was about to say. I'm actually reading The Vanishing Half right now, because I'm in another book club and we're reading that right now. So we have our book club tomorrow. So I haven't quite finished it yet, but it starts off a little slow, but it has a lot of themes in it that are interesting to explore. For this book, honestly, I didn't read it because I didn't see the post till late. So I actually downloaded the sample and downloaded the Audible sample and the Kindle sample. So I started reading it. And literally while we were on here, once you all started talking, I was literally trying to cancel it. Like, I don't want to read it, but then the more I listen, I am going to read it. So I'm gonna finish it. I'm looking forward to finishing it. Terry McMillan reads historically for me have been quick reads, so I probably will start it tonight and probably wrap it up. But yeah, I'm just happy to be here. But yeah, The Vanishing Half is the one that I'm reading right now. So then this will be next on my list. So.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. Don't let us sway us. Read it for yourself. Let's see what everyone else is reading. The Vanishing Half, American Dirt. Willette is reading American Dirt. I haven't read that one before. Autumn's in the Middle of Homegoing. I've read that. Amber's reading Obama's book as well. Alicia said she's reading manuscripts for the next 30 days. Oh, goodness. Janan, Party of Two. Wait, hold on. It scrolled up. Where did it go? Party of Two, is that what it was? Okay, I haven't read that either. So look, we are.
Yes, Party of Two.
Party of Two. What's it about, Janan? Do you know it? Do you know?
I'm about to start reading it, but I like her books. She also wrote The Proposal, Wedding Date.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
See, I like to binge read. So now I'm going to have to go find her books, because I like to binge read and read everyone's book back to back. There's someone who said their last book was Red at the Bone. Julia read Red at the Bone, and she loved it. Oh, and The Wedding Gift. I haven't read that either. I hope somebody's taking notes, but thank you all for your time. Thank you all for joining us on our Bookish Book Club event. And I'm not sure when the next one will be, probably maybe around February or March, but just be on the lookout for it. And I hope you all enjoy your Saturday. Jada, do you have anything you want to add?
Sure. Hold on. Oh, there. Can I tell you, Tia, you have done an amazing job with, moderating this discussion, giving us this opportunity to even think about this book. I am as well a Terry McMillan connoisseur. And it definitely brought some things to light that I haven't considered. And I love the discussion around mental health and how we as a community should definitely, be more open, give ourselves permission to, to live in our truth, and surrounding ourselves with, that sisterhood, that inner circle that no matter what, they will tell us the truth in love. And so I echo the sentiments that you have. This has been a great event. Definitely look out in the future for opportunities for another book club. And Tia did her thing. So I would welcome you all to drop comments and, just kudos to Tia.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I'm a bookworm. I love reading. I could stay on here all day and talk about it, but I know we got to go.
Great job, Tia.
Thank you all. I appreciate it. Have a good Saturday.
Great
Happy
job.
Saturday.
Loved it.
Thank
Bye,
you for
ladies.
coming.
All right.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.